the growth is layers, right? So we'll go in, we'll build a layer. I'll be super OCD about that layer, and then I'll completely hand it off and not worry about it. And then I'll go into the next layer and I'll build the next thing. It's this process, which is funny because I think people don't think of growth people as ops people, but it's
No.
operationally insanely complex.
The most critical thing that you can do when you're building a growth flywheel is just not take away anything that you built. So if you start a thing, assume you're going to do that thing indefinitely
Ever.
until the end of time.
The trick is, how do I build this product into something that is self-replicating? How do I get enough momentum that I begin to drive that organic growth?
Welcome to the In the Pit podcast. I'm your host, Cody Schneider. On this show, we teach you how to grow companies. Today, I'm joined by my friend, Kobe Conrad. I've known Kobe for 15 plus years, which is crazy to say now. And for those of you that are new, Kobe and I were the first growth hires at Rupa Health. Kobe was the head of growth. He brought me in to run operations, and we helped take Rupa from a $20 million valuation to a $110 million valuation in about 6 months. He's a regular on the show. The conversations are always super good, and I'm excited to have him back. This episode is brought to you by Podcast Guest Launch. Podcast Guest Launch helps you get guest appearances on podcasts so that you can grow your brand. They handle all the research, all of the reach out, and a scheduled event just shows up on your calendar that you show up to. You record and you get all the benefit of going on these shows and being a guest there. I've been using them for the last couple months and I've been on over 20 different shows at this point. It's built insanely powerful backlinks for my company, Swell AI. I get to tap into the trust of that podcast's audience and I get to talk about my company in front of that audience. And then the other benefit I get from it is I can take all of these video recordings and I can repurpose that into content that I can use across all of my social channels. Go to podcastguestlaunch.com to learn more, or just click the link in the description. This show is also brought to you by Swell AI, the AI content marketing platform. Record conversations with industry experts in your niche, and then turn those videos into clips, blog posts, newsletters, and more. In minutes, you can make all the content you need for an entire week from a single piece of pillar content. This is the most effective way I've found to grow early stage startups. You can sign up for Swell AI for free at swellai.com or click the link in the show notes. All right, let's get started with today's show.
This is my momentum right now.
Nice. You in Medellin?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I'm trying to tie this back to momentum for you. I feel so fucking focused here.
Nice. Why?
I'm just really happy, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how to put that. Is in San Francisco, I was just like stuck in like this little box that was super expensive and shit. And here, beautiful apartment. The weather is amazing. The food is delicious and cheap.
Have you been robbed yet?
Haven't been robbed. I almost got kidnapped at the airport. I got off the airplane. Some dude was like, taxi. And I'm like, I need a taxi. So I go out and I'm like walking through, and then we walk past the taxis and I'm like, oh, where's your car? He's like, oh, it's like in the garage back here. I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then his friend joins. He's like, oh, he's coming with us. And he's like, why do I need 2 taxi drivers? And he's like,
they click.
yeah. And he's like aggressively like taking my suitcase. And then I like pieced out of that situation. And I was like, I am fresh off this boat, but I'm not that fresh mentally. So I fucking booked. Okay. Besides that, don't die in Medellin. But yeah, man, just away from the distractions. I thought I was going to be like distracted here because like, oh, you're on vacation. But honestly, no, man, there's stuff to do, but I'm not super into partying. So I'm just sitting in a really nice location, just working my butt off and building stuff.
I love it, man. Yeah, I know. I think momentum, I'd be curious too to hear your thoughts on like what's happening with people training their own models. Like this is something we're starting to talk about more and more of like, okay, we want to basically, so what we found is that the APIs that we've been using from like these larger corps, they don't have versioning. And so like shit will change, but our customer has built workflows on top of us, right? And so they're like, hey, my workflow that worked yesterday is no longer working today. And then we go and we look at like these changes and it's like not us, we didn't do anything, but it's this company, right? And so for us, we're realizing like to create like, as we get to scale to create a better customer experience, we're going to have to basically have these like custom trained models that we keep in our own versioning. So anyways, I mean, I know your brother's doing stuff in this space, which I think would be interesting to hear like what they're seeing kind of on the front lines. And just for shout out SF Compute, if you need to train a model, go buy them. But yeah, so I think that would be something interesting to talk about today too. And then we're going through hiring and we're doing like all offshore just to do it, to see what will happen. And yeah, I mean, maybe we could talk about that and how crazy hard it is, but some of the stuff that we figured out that's kind of backwards. But yeah, maybe we do that for today.
I love it.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, you want to
So
start
talk to
with
me about
training?
momentum, man. Like what you
Moment.
see, yeah, and like how momentum like affects a growth like organization and how important it is for like early stage companies.
It's a fascinating question. I think there's a couple different ways you can like break that down. So there is like growth momentum, right? So there's like the product is accelerating and growing faster. And there is how do you like look at like tiny wins that compound and build over time? And then you have returns at scale. So like realizing that, hey, you might have like a little trickle today. Okay, I'm gonna tie this. You want to talk about momentum? All right. I just launched a book. Everybody, check this out. Channels of Growth book. Yeah, here's my like real life case study. Is I didn't tell freaking anybody that I launched my book. I don't think I even told you yet, Cody.
I got I think a text message with an Amazon link. No
Yeah.
context, but that was about it.
Nice. Yeah, I basically so first I want to launch my book, right? I start by building a little bit of momentum. So I make my product, I put it live, but I don't tell anyone. And I go every day. I've been going to one friend and I'm like, hey, I'm trying to build up some reviews and I want to get some reviews for my book because I'm gonna have a launch and I want to have some reviews before I launch. So like the first mini game here is build 20 reviews before launch day. Then that now I have a product, I have some reviews, I have some good stuff for people to say about it. I actually today just hit live on my Substack. So I just announced it to my Substack and I leveraged.
How long you been building this Substack? Just for context for people.
2 years, 2 years.
Yeah. What's your subs on there?
I want to say like 14,000, something like that. It's the number one Substack for growth marketing. Basically, we went through and we scraped every growth marketer in the US or anyone who had growth in their title. And then we just added them to my Substack. So congratulations. If you work in growth, you're probably on my Substack and you're like, why, how did I get there? So yeah, it's interesting, right? Like
all those people have the biggest budgets to spend within the organization if they're actually legit. So you should go sponsor Kobe's thing. Another plug.
It's wild. But yeah, so it's interesting, right? Is there's the momentum of I needed to build an audience and then I built a product and now I'm doing this like initial launch and first starting with my friends, reach out to my friends, first starting with just a little trickle of an ad campaign. So starting to play around with Amazon ads and get book sales, which I'm now able to get profitably, by the way, which is really freaking cool. I didn't think that was going to be possible.
How are you tracking everything? Are you tracking everything or like, how do you know how you know it's profitable?
Amazon tells me it has the tracking hooked up. It's beautiful. They actually have a really good advertising product for books. I was honestly super surprised. But yeah, so like the trick, right, is how do I build this product into something that is self-replicating and how do I get so much momentum that you can't stop it? Where if let's say 100,000 book sales go out and people love it, they're referring it to their friends. I'm having a shit ton of reviews. I'm like ranking really high on like Amazon, right? And then at that point, it's just like a self-fulfilling cycle. So the trick, right, is how do I get enough momentum that I begin to drive that organic growth? So it's launch with friends, get enough reviews, have my Substack launch, do a product hunt launch. I'm going to do a Twitter launch on February 4th, and then working with some influencers to push it out through my Twitter launch. And yeah, like it's like there's this wall or this ledge I have to get over, right? And once I get over the ledge, I get enough reviews. I'm like in the Amazon system and in the psyches of the growth marketing world. Then at that point, I've like
it almost takes a life of its own. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like the momentum of like pushing the boulder up the hill, right? Is like you got to like push it and it's really heavy and it's not exactly profitable and like none of these processes are going to scale. But how do I get enough momentum behind it that it takes off and goes by itself?
Totally.
And so much stuff is like that, you know, like
every company is that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is something I think we just hit our tipping point where it's like PMF feels solid. We're starting to get these like inbounds where it's just crazy, right? And it's like very clear product roadmap. And this is just like a year of like, just banging our heads against the wall. I mean, fuck, Max had a day job, for the first 7 months of it. And like, long story short, like, I think that it's really, like, hit me recently and, like, settled,
Mhm,
like, how important keeping that momentum is, and it's across all parts of the organization, whether it's hiring, whether it's sales, whether it's marketing. Like, something I've been thinking about is, like, the most and critical thing that you can do when you're, like, building a growth flywheel is just, like,
mhm,
not take away anything that you built. So, like, if you start a thing, like, assume
mhm.
you're gonna do that thing indefinitely
Ever.
until the end of time, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, this is something that, like, I'm, realizing more and more is like, and as a solo founder, it's like, this is the, especially an early
Mhm,
stage founder, this is the hardest part is you're like, oh, I want to do all these things. But what
mhm,
you really need to get to is like, I have to pick one, I have to get super fucking good at it, and then I have to automate it or I have to delegate it. And then until I
mhm,
do that, I can't go on to this next thing. And
mhm.
it's really kind of probably tapping into, is it Andrew Chen? Is that his book on what's it, the cold start problem? I don't know if there's a lot like the biggest takeaway for me from reading that, like this was
Mm,
years ago, but it was basically like really growth is just layering growth curves together.
mhm,
Like that's how you feel like that's how you make something go like parabolic. And so it's like, okay, I do a thing, automate, delegate. Okay, I do a
mhm,
thing, automate, delegate. Okay, I do a thing, automate, delegate. And then that's how you get this like, rapid expansion to happen. And that's that feeling of momentum. It's when all of
mhm,
those things compound. And really, I mean, we're doing this live, right? So I'm just like
mhm.
trying to think through like all of these kind of the things I've been noticing and connect the dots. But I'm curious your thoughts on that and like where your head's at when you hear those types of things.
Growth is like an onion, Cody.
Oh my God. Here we
Oh,
go.
okay. You wanna hear something meta? So one of the really cool parts about Roop right now is we're doing like people training. So we brought in this people trainer. She's amazing, and she like gave us this thing is like, where do you fall on the spectrum from like telling people what to do or like asking them and like guiding them what to do? And what I realized was that I'm kind of schizophrenic. Where I don't know if you resonate with this from working with me, Cody, but like I'll, like, tell people what to do, and then I'll not care at all.
Yeah.
And I realized what's happening is I'm working on the edges of the onion here,
Mm,
is the growth is like layers, right? So, we'll go in, we'll build a layer, I'll be super OCD about that layer, and then I'll completely hand it off and not worry about it. And then I'll go into the next layer, and then I'll build the next thing. So, I'll build Facebook ads, be super OCD, hand it off. Google ads, OCD, hand it off. Rupa University, OCD, hand it off. Partnerships, OCD, hand it off. And it's exactly what you're talking about, right? It's this process, which is funny because I think people don't think of growth people as like ops people, but it's
no,
operationally insanely complex. And it's
100%.
just like building these
I'm
layers on
scared.
top of each other.
Like I'm scaling our influencer marketing strategy right now. And
Mhm,
like, I took a step back for a second. I was like, yeah, this is literally just, ops. Like, it's like, what
mhm,
is this process definition? How do I make it into bite-sized pieces? All it is decision trees all the way down. And then I'm going to like put an individual in there to own that whole process. Right.
mhm,
And that's what it turns into. I think the other thing that's interesting with this too is like, there's different ways to do this. Like
mhm,
I've met other growth people that are like, fingers in everything. But like personally, like what I'd really rather do is like I want to hire the best people I can and then
mhm,
just give them the autonomy to basically solve the problems. Cause like to me, I think I fall more on the side of the spectrum of the Kinko's founder and like his opinions and
mhm,
belief. So his view was like, okay, I'm just gonna like let people do what they think is the best and right.
mhm,
And then like as people discover the things at the stores individually, I'm gonna aggregate that and then I'm gonna distribute that to the rest of them. So it's almost like letting natural selection happen in its own like way, and then like taking the best performing like learnings and then like
mhm.
kind of displaying them for the rest of of people to get educated on.
Yeah.
So anyways, but I think there's like again, there's so many ways to manage companies, but this is
Mhm,
how I've seen growth orgs be really, really successful. It's just to your point, like you go in and you start the initiative because you
mhm,
have to like the analogy I use all the time is like it's like when a car runs out of gas and it's like stopped, right? And you're like
mhm,
pushing on that car to try to get it to move. Like that
mhm.
initial momentum to get it moving forward is super hard.
So
But
hard.
once it's moving forward, it's way
Mhm,
easier to put somebody in that place and be like, okay, keep pushing the car.
mhm,
And so like your job as a growth like lead or a growth head
mhm,
or anybody, even a founder, is to basically figure out, okay, how do I create that initial momentum? And
mhm,
then once I do that, right? Because I'm bending I'm bending reality to like my
mhm,
needs, right? But once I've bent reality and people are like, oh, this is actually possible. Then you put that individual in that's now, okay, taking over that position and that role. So anyways, just the ways that I've been thinking about it more and more.
It's fascinating. What's really interesting, Cody, is I'm trying to tie this back to how you're talking about once you start doing something, you have to do it forever. I think that it also becomes really important not to like move into like the softer stuff, but just having like a really clear direction and vision of what you're doing, both for your company and just like yourself personally, you know?
Totally.
Because otherwise you start building balls in different directions and it becomes so hard to maintain.
The mental energy switching cost like will take up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the hardest part, right? And like
Mhm.
what we've realized just as, I mean, this is the founder's dilemma, right? It's like you have so
Mhm.
many things you want to do and so many things you
Yeah.
want to, like there's fucking
And
8
how do you
companies I
decide?
want right now, right? But
Mhm.
yeah. But it's like, okay, well, there's this thing right now, like
Mhm.
I have to dedicate all of my attention to that thing. And like I'm doing it a disservice if I'm not, right?
Mhm.
Until it gets to that momentum jump. And it's different. Like if you're VC backed, it's different.
Mm.
And if you're self funded, it's different. But there's this level, like there will be a tipping point probably with Swell,
Mhm.
right? Where it's like, okay, I have team members in place. This thing is basically on autopilot, right? From a process and management standpoint. My
Mhm.
job now is like big picture shit, right? And then
Mhm.
maybe I can go and I can spin off one of these other little tiny things. But like I keep joking, like with my girlfriend, I'm like, yo, like no new things. Like
Mhm.
2024, it's like no new
Focus.
things, no new friends, no like which is kind of shit, but it's like it's
Mhm.
one of those years. And I've had years like this in the past where it's like, okay, you just like it's like heads down and
Mhm.
do the work basically. And it's not the worst part about this is like it's not sexy, it's not interesting, it's not fun. Everybody like
Mhm.
this is a larger, I mean, great example is everybody loves business ideas. They like
Mhm.
get off on finding business ideas, right? And then it's
Mhm.
just like they find domains and they think about this whole distribution thing. And like it's sexy. That's the tweet that goes viral. But in
Mhm.
reality, that's not what makes it where it's like cool. Like now we have a family office, right? And like I'm just buying real estate because it's like tax write-off incentives. And
Mhm.
like that. So I get what I'm trying to say is that I think there's this like you have to keep that momentum for self, like just to tie it
Mhm.
into this larger theme. You have to keep that momentum for yourself of like, okay, yeah, I am doing this boring thing. And like as a founder, you're probably intrinsically like, you don't like this. Like you like 0 to 1, right? But
Mhm.
you have to like still keep that like moving forward. Like
Forever.
because that's how you get to that like next level with this. So, anyways, the mantras I've been telling myself and the things I've been thinking about lately.
I Okay, 2 things. First, I almost bought a $3,000 domain today. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. I'm It's so
Dude, I
hard.
almost bought one
It's
2 weeks ago because I was like,
it's
"Oh, this company I can
it's
make that perfect," right? Like,
it's not okay, sorry. I'm not going down this rabbit hole. It is so hard to bring yourself back to focus. And I feel like that is the hardest part of startups for like guys like me and you, or at least me. I don't want to talk about you, but I've known you for a hot minute, Cody. Is
100%. It's almost been 10 years, which is
mhm.
crazy. I was thinking about that the other day, but
But it's so fun to go 0 to 1. And going back to, like, layers, right? Like, that's our freaking job, it's our job to build that layer on the edge of the onion, right? So we're constantly like, "Cool, what's the next layer? What's the next layer? What's the next layer? What's the next layer?" But then to do that around a central mission of without losing focus and building something that's not a layer on top of our current onion, but, like, trying to have multiple onions. And, like, it's so hard to pull it back to center. But that's my New Year's resolution focus is no, I don't want to say no new things, but just no distractions. How do I stay focused, grow Rupa? And I can't do anything that's not a service to that. Like even I'm launching my book, that is a service to me becoming a better growth leader at Rupa. Like I actively get like hiring benefits by like publishing it. But how do we like
totally,
build this
totally.
company into something massive, right? And I got to stay
Yeah, yeah,
focused.
yeah. Oh, we should talk about that, Kobe. We should talk about top of funnel hiring strategies
Okay.
because I know you guys are starting to do this at Rupa, just like
Oh.
across social. And yeah, I'd be
Mhm.
curious to hear like your thoughts on that. But so before we do that, let's go back to like training models
Yeah.
and like SF compute and like what's going on there because I think it's super interesting and like
Mhm.
I mean it's topical for us. It's like
Mhm.
something that we're starting to approach. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I'd love to hear what you're seeing kind of from the front lines on that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So for those of you that don't know, it's really fucking expensive to train a model. Usually you have to purchase like a cluster you have to rent it out for like a year. So you might only need it for like a couple of weeks, but they're renting it for like a year. It can cost millions and millions and millions of dollars. So what San Francisco Compute does is they have basically bought up a huge chunk of compute, like thousands of H100s, and they will allow you, I want to say it's by an hourly basis, is they'll let you rent out as much compute as you need on an hourly basis. And they're one of the only companies that currently does that. Yeah. So if you want to like have like the world's easiest financial bet, is go take all of your money and put it into NVIDIA and just forget about it for 10 years.
Dude,
And
I'm at it's like
yeah,
buying S&P and I'm just like
mhm,
YOLOing it in Nvidia and
yeah,
like MSFT.
yeah,
Like
dude, I'm
this is
gonna
not
like,
financial advice. This is just
yeah,
like what we're seeing.
yeah, here's my Robin Hood. I'll put this for anyone who can see. Is these are my positions. I basically just made a portfolio of like who is going to be the market winners of compute for the next decade. And it's like Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Nvidia, Meta, Tesla, AMD, Apple, and TSM. And then I'm doing that in like the public markets, and then in the private markets, I'm like putting angel money into like startups like SF Computes they're riding that whip. No one is prepared. We think the market is bought in, but no one is prepared for what's about to happen over the next decade with AI. It's that the chips are getting bigger, the chips are getting stronger. We're beginning to train more and more powerful models. Exactly what you're saying at the start of this, Cody, is like it's gonna become so easy for anyone to train a model. Like
Yeah,
right
totally.
now, you have to spend millions of dollars in 2030 2044 for 10 years from now. It's going to cost maybe a couple grand,
Yeah.
and you're going to be able to
I
train
mean, we
chat
priced it
GPT.
out and we're like, oh, we think that we could probably get it to like a
Mm,
level that we want with like one of these open source models, like for
yeah.
probably 30-ish grand. And we're like,
Yep.
okay, like
So,
so now it's like, okay, get eng talent
mhm,
to basically be able to do that.
mhm,
But there's
yeah.
these other things that we have to accomplish before. But anyways, go on, go on.
And what like NVIDIA CEO was just talking about is there's going to become like new ways to leverage AI and like in the chips. Like this is beyond my technical understanding, but he's talking about like being able to program your like biology on like a cellular level. Like we don't like we are dumb. I'm dumb, you are dumb, we are all dumb. None of us listening to this is like a PhD in AI. Like none of us, the market does not understand the applications of what's going to be able to happen once we're able to condense all of this knowledge into a system that is able to operate like
Yeah.
AI is
The
operating.
analogy I've been using is like when a code base has been worked on for
Mhm.
so long that you don't even understand how it actually functions anymore. Like Google is like,
Yeah.
we think it functions like this, but they actually don't
Yeah.
know how search functions. And like Facebook with their timeline, right? It's the
Mhm.
same thing. So imagine that, but now it's an AI talking about biologic systems, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to understand these things that are incomprehensible to us. And it's just pattern recognition that it's done that's at a scale that's like unfathomable. So
Yeah. It's like try to explain Chat GPT to someone in like the 1990s, you know? Is
yeah,
like, oh,
100%.
okay, not even 1990, like 1993. Like
Yeah.
1993. Like the internet has launched, like you can smart investors realize the dot-com boom is coming, and the dot-com boom is gonna boom, and then it's gonna bust, and then it's gonna be 2023 and we're gonna have freaking Chat GPT. And trying to explain that to the market 30 years ago, that is how dumb we are today and how ignorant we are. So yeah, what's gonna happen with AI is going to be crazy. Like
So
imagine a
these people that
world.
are training
Yeah.
these small, like with SF Compute, like
Mhm.
is it like mainly like researchers? Is it companies? Like, are you seeing a
It's
combination of
companies.
the both? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's startups. Like that's how SF Compute started, right? Is
Yeah.
they're trying to train a model for like a music startup, and they couldn't train their model because
They
would
need
have
to buy a
cost
year
them
of
like.
clusters or whatever. Yeah.
So they're like, cool, let's buy a year of
Holy shit.
clusters and we'll rent it out to our friends, and then we'll be able to do our startup. And then and then they realized the market demand from it. It went from like, oh, we'll get a couple hundred to like now they're at like
Totally.
thousands of clusters.
Totally.
And here's the thing. These are H100 clusters. They're not the freaking A100, A100, A200s or like the 2024 generation that's about to come out that's even more powerful.
Totally.
What is about to happen like the next 5 to 10 years
Dude,
is
they're just
gonna
a brokerage. That's what's so
Mhm.
interesting thinking
Yeah.
about this is like, it's like we are basically buying wholesale
Mhm.
and then we're going to chop this up into smaller, like unit sizes and
Mhm.
then charge a margin on top of that. That's such a stupid, simple business model. Like it's brilliant. Like,
There's two layers. Two layers is the first
yeah,
bit is it's really hard to do.
yeah,
Like
of course.
when I
When I
when
say
I
stupid simple, I think it more like on like when I'm describing a business
yeah,
model,
yeah.
an investor, right? Like,
Mhm.
hey, we buy things in wholesale and then we resell them at markup prices and like chopped up into smaller unit sizes. But like in reality,
That's
like the actual technical piece is,
mhm.
I mean, there's like fucking 100 people in the world that can do this.
But that's what that was the feedback is from a lot of investors. It's like, oh, why isn't someone else going to do this? Like anyone, it's sound without the right context, it can sound a little bit like you're buying GPUs to mine Bitcoin. You know, it's like
Yeah.
everyone can buy GPUs to buy Bitcoin. The problem is that the market is limited. There's only so many H100s in the world. There's only so many production runs. Like Nvidia, like literally has to. They won't sell you all of it because they don't want to have like one person have access to all of it. And then the next piece is I think there's like a software abstraction layer. So disclaimer, I have no clue what's on the roadmap, but this is just
Yeah,
me
yeah, of
outside
course.
looking in. Is there's the software, like a really good developer experience of making it easy for people to
For
train.
sure. I mean, I think that's why NVIDIA
Um,
is owning the market right now,
mhm,
is because whatever, I
yeah,
can't remember the name of their stack or whatever
yeah.
their software layer is, but
But Nvidia is gonna be the largest company in the world. Like
yeah.
I got so much faith in this. We think it's priced in, but it's not. It's crazy.
Totally, totally. No, that's super interesting. I mean, another thing that's kind of related to this that we're seeing is like more and more people are being conscious of like, is the model training off of their data? And like,
Mm,
my friend's thesis is that basically everybody's going to want models locally on devices. Like, so just how you have like your fingerprint
mm,
ID and your facial recognition saved on your iPhone, you're going to
mhm,
want all of your like data being stored
mhm,
locally, like not going through APIs, etc. And so that's what he's building is basically like base layer tech that can be in the form of like an app that goes on an iPhone. So it's like, oh, I'm doing like speech to text type stuff.
mm,
But all of that is happening locally on the device. And like as we get just more powerful chips on these like, smaller
mhm.
computers, that's gonna like, he's basically like, how can I run the smallest whisper model as possible and get like a 99% accuracy type of thing?
Wait,
Um,
is this a privacy thing or is this a you want your data fed into the model thing?
This is a privacy thing. You don't want it fed to a larger model. And like the
Mm,
companies that we're talking to, like
mhm.
this is like, when we talk to legal, this is their biggest concern is like,
Oh,
what are you doing with the data that we provide? And it's not so much
mhm,
that they're worried that you're training, it's their companies that they're associated with that they
mhm,
can get backlash from. So it's like, when you think about it of like, oh, here's organization one, we're doing a deal with them. But if they
mhm,
have like, all of these other companies that are their customers and they're working with these data that have copyrights, right? So if that
mhm,
is going back into like through them into us,
mhm,
that's then being trained on. So it's almost this like, it's basically trying to protect customer client interest. And so like
mhm.
we all the legal conversations we're having is basically that, like what is going on basically. So
I get it. I get it. I think we're kind of in a moment in the world where it's like, don't get in strangers' cars, but then Uber comes out and that's how you get around the world now. I don't know how much people are actually going to care. Like we're freaking out. What is interesting about this time around is now we're data conscious. Is like that is in the psyche of people is like what's happening with our data.
yeah.
But probably what will happen is 20% of people will care and 80% of people won't care.
I think
And
this will
then
make the biometrics conversation more
mhm.
interesting, actually. Like people are going to be like, "Yo, are biometrics a human right?" To the point where if my voice
Mm,
and my likeness, like, is that just
mhm.
like built into? Okay, I get born into America and I own that, right?
Okay.
Along with like my DNA structure, and like, we could talk
Mhm.
about this all day long. Like how fucking what is it?
Okay.
23andMe is just
Yeah, yeah.
a data mining company for big healthcare, but
So, spicy question for you, Cody,
please,
is which one is better for a society? It may be for the individual or for the individual not to have it, but for us to be able to train super useful and powerful algorithms based off of all of the data that's available in human history.
yeah,
And we might start regulating it and
yeah,
we'll be like, oh, we can't do this and blah, blah, blah. And then what's going to happen with China and other countries that just don't give a shit? And then they just have these models trained off of everybody, and they're able to use them for their society. It's interesting in both really scary but also powerful ways.
Yeah, I think
It's gonna
where my head goes is like central planning only can work when you have like
Mhm.
large data sets, right? So like when you
Yeah.
understand all the chain and then can understand all of the effects within that chain. Like the whole
Mhm.
point of the free market is like individual and decisions are happening at each of those
Mhm.
nodes within the chain. And that's how
Yeah.
you're creating efficiencies. Like there's inefficiencies along that process, and that's how we
Mhm.
prosper and like make money. But fast forward, it's 20 years from now, and you have the data processing to understand every node in that chain. So you can have
Mhm.
central planning that actually functions because you can like see that, right?
Mhm.
There's no feedback loop, like there's no delay in like the data going from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. So like a China could be positioned really effectively, in my
Mhm.
opinion, to basically like if they adopt this like as a central planning mechanism where they're going to be able to like accelerate way quicker on a
Mhm.
technology standpoint because the decision making process is happening like way faster, right? It's like
Mhm.
faster than the free market. That changes the whole paradigm of like what is
Mhm.
capitalism, personally,
Mhm.
in my opinion. This is all coming to from my like fucking bachelor's degree in economics, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is my personal like views and opinions on it. But I think that like what personally how I'm thinking about it is like ownership of rights. Like,
Mhm.
we believe in private property. Like, what is
Yeah.
going to be the boundary of private property when it comes to like an individual and also when it comes to a company? And so I don't know. All I know is that I'm seeing companies be really concerned about this, like
Mhm.
in the Western world. I don't know if it's different, like in like Eastern country where they're like, yo, just fucking give it the data and let it do what it wants,
I
just
mean
because
I
it's like
mean,
more of a collective view on
but
society. But I think the individualism that we have, like
Mhm. It's
in the
gonna be
U.S. in
hard.
particular, it's going to be really hard to convince people that they want
Yeah,
this.
here's the thing is what is AI? AI is our collective knowledge. AI isn't about the individual. Like imagine trying to train
Yeah,
AI without being able to train it on the information that's on the internet.
yeah.
The more of our collective thoughts and ideas you put into the AI model, the more powerful it becomes. So
So
it's
it's like a sacrifice to create a better. Yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting. I just don't know if we can convince people to do that. I'm curious to
Yeah,
see what happens.
there's no way in the US. It's gonna be so hard,
Yeah.
but that's gonna be
Have you
like
seen
the
the movie The
limiting factor.
Creator yet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and,
good.
like, I thought it super honestly, super good. I was shocked that it got such negative reviews. I thought it was beautiful and the story was unique, and, like, personally, I was like I've read, like, Isaac Asimov for forever, and, like, he's one of my
Mm,
favorite authors, and he talks about regularly, like, what, is a robot, like, if they, are conscious, like, what's that
mhm,
tipping point when it's, like,
mhm,
they're, like, do they have rights, etcetera, those types of things. And that movie, I was like, by the end of the movie, I was like, I find myself more on the side of like the New Asia or whatever they called that,
mhm.
that segment. That like, oh no, these are
These
people.
humans. Mhm,
Yeah, exactly. Even though they're not. But if it's just like, doing mimicry and it feel like if it looks human, it feels human and it talks human and it acts human, like to
mhm.
me, like the experience that is human,
It's
right?
human,
Even though
yeah.
there's not all these other things. But I don't know. Like it's been I think it's like what everybody's talking about. Like we're in
Mhm,
for a wild ride with this. But to bring it back to reality, like I think companies more and more, like they're like what you're seeing on the SF compute side, like they're going to be training their own models.
mhm,
The cost is going to get so cheap to be able to do this. I think you're going to be able to come in and like crack these open source models too, to do them, like have them do whatever you want. Like
mhm,
Mistral AI as an example and like what they're doing. Like I think you're going to be able to take those and modify them. And like I've seen some, I've already seen some crazy shit of just people just being like, yeah, I just like basically like retrained it so that it's like this open thing. Like you can have
mhm.
it do anything. There's no like, there's no gates on it, right? Like
Yeah.
like out of the box, like these models typically have. And so I feel like that's just like this natural progression, and people are going to want to own that data in the Western world is kind of my thesis, but we'll see what happens and what changes. But
It's gonna be wild, Cody.
for sure, man.
Roaring
So,
20s.
dude, for real. Talk to me about how you guys are thinking about social media as a hiring, like top of funnel hiring engine for getting inbound. Like, are you first off,
Mhm.
are you like as an organization like planning based on that? Like, are you doing things and like have initiatives, or is it just like ad hoc that you're doing this?
I mean, it's definitely intentional. Yeah, like media and social, like, we were always doing it. Like, we within the healthcare space, we already have like 500,000 followers built up. And we've been sponsoring like Mark Hyman, who's like one of the major doctors in our industry for like a long time, right? So in certain roles, it was always like, oh my God, I love you guys. I heard about you on this podcast. I see your content, blah, blah, blah. Super effective. The new piece that we're laying in is specifically within the tech industry. Is that we need to hire software engineers, we need to hire product managers. So now we need to evolve beyond just the healthcare space, and we need to get into like the tech circles. So that's where we're beginning to like dive into going really hard on Twitter, going really hard on LinkedIn, thinking about which like biohacking, more mainstream podcasts and stuff we can like get onto. Reason why I started writing my book, my Substack, is like, how do I get into the psyche of like growth marketing related like tech workers? Yeah, super important. Like we're hiring for like senior roles right now, and like half of the people are like, yeah, the first place I heard about you was on Twitter. And
So
that's
insane.
just super, super, super impactful.
Totally.
Brand
like
is
this
important.
Totally. There's like a social trust that's built into that. Like a
Mhm.
social proof, I think is another piece.
Yeah.
It's the other side of it, which is crazy too, is like it creates this referral engine. Like
Mhm.
as you, I mean, we found, it's the classic, right? Where like the best employees like come from, and or best team members come from like referrals from people that are
Mhm.
good, right? So
Yeah.
you get one on your team, and then it turns into this whole like flywheel.
And that goes back to momentum, right?
Yeah.
How do you get that first one? Because it's like nodes in a system. Is like good people know good people.
Yep.
And if you don't have to think about like, how do I get like 10 amazing software engineers? You just have to be like, how do I get one world-class one that has 10 friends?
Totally. 100%. There's like this, like, I mean, I just think about like Max and like
Mhm.
your brother, right? Like their
Yeah.
network density is insane, right? And they know like every good engineer that exists, it's like they have a relationship with them, and like what that means just from like any company that they go and join. That's also a
Mhm.
leverage point for them too, right? It's like
Mhm.
whether they start a company or they go and join a company, like they basically, that's like an aspect in their negotiation that they could
Mhm.
probably use. Where it's like, yeah, well, like here's all these people that I know that you definitely probably want to hire and that are on your
Mhm.
radar if you have like a recruiting team. So it's just kind of an interesting thought, but cool, man. Anything else that it was on like top of mind this last week that you find is interesting? I think something that might be interesting that's
Mhm.
related to that is like I'm seeing more and more like C-suite, anybody that's in like
Mhm.
managerial roles at companies like start to do, I don't even know what to call it, like we're like branded
Mhm.
podcast, social
Yeah.
media, so that they like what you're talking about of like, how do I be omnipresent on these channels without
Mhm.
like having to do a ton of work? Or it's like, oh, cool. They like sit down and they have conversations for an hour a week. And then a
Mhm.
team works in the background to make, I mean, it's like literally what I'm doing, right? But like
Mhm.
teams sit down in the background and work on clips and do all this, right? And get it out in front of their target audience so that they can create, whatever inbound that they're trying to. But it's, again, like they're thinking about this for an hour a week, right? 4 hours a month. And then that engine's running in the background.
Mhm.
Are you guys thinking about that, or like are doing anything in that space? And I'm curious your thoughts on just like,
Mhm.
because I feel like your executive team is conscious of these types of things and like
Mhm.
focusing on that.
You know how I try to describe it is something that like really bugs me is the fact that I was just as good and valuable before I went through Y Combinator as after,
Yep.
but the brands allowed me to monetize and capture my value correctly. And I think it like all people in leadership kind of struggle with that, right? Is especially as a marketer, is like I deeply understand the value and the impact of the brand and how it can cause people to pay more money for something than they would otherwise. And so content's important from like a leadership and an exec point of view to like be able to hire and recruit and like get people like bought in. It's also important from a career standpoint of like being able to just like monetize and like capture your value within a market. And it sucks because there's an inverse incentive. I don't want to have to focus on it at all. Like
Yeah,
I really don't.
totally.
I want the market to just pay me what I'm worth, and for me to just be able to focus on becoming as intrinsically valuable and level up my skills as much as
Yeah.
possible. So it's like
We want it to be
it's
meritocratic, but it's
Mhm.
or like
but
a
it's not.
meritocratic, but it's
But
yeah.
it's really not, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, this is what
so
I've came to, like, just for sorry to interject, but
yeah.
like what you just said about YC. Like, I have
Mhm.
no traditional credentials, right?
Mhm.
The only way that I am capable of basically getting leverage within the market and like
Mhm.
building trust is like being public and press
Social,
because I
yeah.
can't lean on any of these traditional. Like I don't have a,
Mm.
I don't, I'm not from, I didn't go to Stanford. I
Mhm.
didn't get into YC. Like none of, none of these things, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, it's like you have to do like these other leverage points. This is the
Mhm.
one that exists currently. And so that's like why we're thinking about it and doing it. But
Yeah.
yeah, keep going. Sorry.
But yeah, it's like one of those things where people often make mistakes because when they're hiring for leadership, because they're like, they'll hire someone with the stamp and with the social and with the X, Y, and Z. And often those people don't perform very well because it's the people that are like heads down building, that are like deeply executing, that's like are actually like the best hires. So it's like I don't have a good answer for it. It's hard for me. I'm like trying to balance making sure that I am building myself in a way that's good for my career. But I'm like 99% focused on Rupa. It's like
No,
it's
totally.
like it's why I've
Yeah, we do
shifted
this
to
podcast
books.
once a week, and that turns into
Yeah,
media for you. And like you write your
yeah.
Substack like every other week or whatever.
I don't think I've made a post in like 6 months or something.
That's
It's
amazing.
why I'm shifting. Why I shifted to my blog instead,
Yeah,
or into my book instead of the Substack. Write it once, forget about it. It's there forever. It'll continue
yeah,
to grow as long as I get some momentum. It's like, okay, this is great. 30 minutes a week. Thanks for giving me some leverage here, Cody. Appreciate you, homie. And yeah, but like people are gonna like look back and be like, oh, holy shit, Rupa was going wild.
yeah,
And I think like that ultimately at the end of the day is where like the most leverage, at least for me, will come from. Is
yeah,
like once Rupa gets like $1 billion a year in lab sales, people are going to be like, oh, where the hell did this come from?
yeah.
And that's going to be crazy.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part too. Is like it looks so stupid when it's
Hmm.
small, right? Like
Yeah.
we've been talking about this a lot internally. Like
Hmm.
if you the origin of our product was a Google Drive folder that friends uploaded MP3s to that we downloaded, ran on our computer, and then like sent back to the Google Drive folder, right?
I love
Yeah,
that.
and like that was like our first 10 customers was like that version of it, and then we built a web app. But
Nice.
the like where what I'm trying to say is that like it always looks so dumb until it's
Hmm.
like so it
Until
looks
it's
so
not.
stupid until it's not, right?
Hmm.
And it's just like this one day, it's like, oh, that's a real company. Like something
Hmm.
happens, and then there it's
Yeah.
like mentally it's in the zeitgeist of people, and a lot of it probably has to do with like these other social signals, right? Of
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, they got into YC or whatever these types of things. It's just interesting though, but. Max and I, our new mantra now is like, we're just doing this on hard mode to see, like, because if we can pull it off, it's going to be pretty gangster. And if we don't, whatever, like we'll make some money along the process.
Hmm.
But yeah, man, it's kind of we've been wrestling with this a lot because like we just keep getting approached like with people like, yo, let me write checks because they're like, we see a clear path to this being huge. And I don't see it personally yet. Like it's not obvious, but we'll see what happens. So
Oh, do you know the whole you don't actually have to raise multiple rounds, just like raise one and done?
like,
I don't know. I think that's a really bad path, is bring on some money, do it in a way that you don't have to give up any control or responsibility
yeah,
to anyone, and then just be like, we're gonna raise one round and then that's it forever, and then you're on your own.
yeah.
But yeah, either way, I love your guys' hustle and bootstrapping Cody. But if it was me, I like the VC cash, obviously, being in a
Totally.
VC company. But I think you guys are gonna be fucking massive either way, man.
Yeah, I'm just trying like, if we do it, like, it's just, like,
Mhm.
wait as long as we can so it's more leverage within that
Mhm.
negotiation.
Yeah.
Like, because the farther along you get and, like, we're profitable, right? Like, this thing could live
Mhm.
on in perpetuity for an indefinite, like, at
Yeah.
this point. But it's like, okay, cool. Like, if we see this path where it's like, I need to go hire, 10 salespeople and, like,
Mhm.
we need to hire 10 more eng that are, like, US-based, like, A tier, then that's, like, an obvious path or, an obvious reason to do it. But anyway, well, we'll see what happens. With all this, it's like, I mean, that's half of this podcast too, right? Is like just like documenting this type of stuff
Mhm.
because I think it's really just so I can look back at these different points and be like, oh yeah, in hindsight, that was obvious. Like I should have been
Mhm.
like, why didn't I think that from then?
Mhm.
It becomes like more apparent. But well, sweet man, I think we hit our mark. We went over a little time. I appreciate you as always. Yeah. As always, go find Kobe on LinkedIn and Twitter and go look at his new book called Channels of Growth. It's on Amazon. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Check it out on Amazon. Physical copy only for right now. I'm so sorry, but if you like it, leave a review. And thanks for chatting with me today, Cody.
Of course, man. Always love having you. We'll see you next week. Later, brother.
Peace.